A Venn diagram is a way to organize information. And when we look at the different types of quadrilaterals, each different type of quadrilateral has a unique set of properties. To put the types of quadrilaterals into the Venn diagram, we need to be able to identify which properties each quadrilateral has. We're going to start with trapezoid. If we look at a trapezoid, does a trapezoid have at least one pair of parallel sides? Yeah. Does it have two pair of opposite angles congruent? Well, no, not necessarily. It can, but if it does, it becomes something else. At least one pair of congruent sides. Well, no, a regular trapezoid doesn't have at least one pair of congruent sides. If it does, it's something else. So the trapezoid should go into this circle right here. Isosceles trapezoid is a kind of trapezoid, so it has at least one pair of parallel sides. Two pair of opposite angles congruent. Well, in an isosceles trapezoid, we have congruent angles, but those congruent angles are actually consecutive, not opposite. At least one pair of congruent sides. Yes, an isosceles triangle has at least one pair of congruent sides. So it has these two properties, which means the isosceles trapezoid has to go into the intersection of those two circles. Parallelogram has at least one pair of parallel sides. Two pair of opposite angles congruent. Yes, a parallelogram has that. At least one pair of congruent sides. Yeah, a parallelogram has that also. So a parallelogram has all three properties, so it goes in the middle. A rhombus is a kind of parallelogram. So it has at least one pair of parallel sides, it has two pair of opposite angles congruent, and it has at least one pair of congruent sides. A rectangle has at least one pair of parallel sides, has two pair of opposite angles congruent, has all four angles congruent, at least one pair of congruent sides. Yeah, it actually has two pair of congruent sides. So a rectangle has all three properties. A square, at least one pair of parallel sides. Yep. Two pair of opposite angles congruent. Yeah, all four angles are congruent. At least one pair of congruent sides. Yeah, it has all four sides congruent. So a square also goes in the middle. And if you notice, all four of these shapes are all parallelograms. Last type of quadrilateral, kite. At least one pair of parallel sides. No, not necessarily. Two pair of opposite angles congruent. Well, a kite only has to have one pair of opposite angles congruent. It can have more than one, but it only has to have one. At least one pair of congruent sides. Yes, a kite has that. In fact, a kite has two pair of congruent sides. So a kite is going to fit here in the Venn diagram.